Hi everyone, welcome to this video. I'm Naruki. I'm an engineer for recording and mixing in Japan. You may know at Plugin Alliance or Anthropo Audio channel. Today, I will talk about how to use compressors and EQ. Many people explain compressors and EQ on YouTube, but while the use of EQ and compressors are explained, how the settings are determined is not so often discussed. Many people thinking how is best to set up. Here, I would like to explain based on my system of ideas. To be honest, I will tell you a story that is difficult for beginners. Therefore, I will proceed on the promise that you can hear the difference in knowledge and sound to some extent. Please monitor in the highest quality environment possible, or please use headphones. I'm sure you have already watched many tutorial videos on EQ and compressors, but not everything works out in your own production. Here is a systematic explanation of where to listen for sounds and make decisions. Let's get started with the compressor. Compressors are often described as effects that suppress dynamics. Especially in Japan, I sometimes hear that it's used to align levels and volumes. But is this really the case? We have a 1 kHz signal with a different volume. A compressor was processed on this signal. Red is the attack time and blue is the release time. The actual signal is not as simple as it.
I'll be waiting to show the world I'm done. I'll be waiting to show the world I'm done.
To be honest, it is difficult to judge what has changed by applying compression just by listening to the sound. Let's check the waveform.
I'll be waiting to show the world I'm done. I'll be waiting to show the world I'm done.
The waveform overlaid with RMS and LUSF set to the same as possible. Look at this section. The large signal has success in suppressing the levels as intended. However, the smaller signals are also compressed even further, because the amount of reduction is greater and the release is set slower. The smaller signal the larger signal will be smaller. The voice is basically short decay, so unintended compression may occur if released too late. I use a compressor to suppress dynamics, but the result were a bit unintended. This is not bad, the result is just a little different from my idea. I mean, this process can be judged as release was too long by me. Next, let's take a look at the golden settings. In Japan, it is quite famous for its reverse 8 character.
I'll be waiting to show the world I'm done.
Excellent. I was able to compress very well.
I'll be waiting to show the world I'm done. I'll be waiting to show the world I'm done.
You can see that the compressor works well for large signals. And we also understand that if the release settings does not match the materials, it behaves a bit differently. There is no doubt that it is a very useful effect for suppressing dynamics. But what about level and volumes? Many people confuse the dynamic suppressing effect of a compressor with the averaging of level and volume. Basically, it tries to keep the signal below the threshold as it is. You can eliminate some volume differences, but not as much adjustment as you might think. If you want to increase the level of signal below the threshold, you should use an auto-leveler plugin, automation, and limiter. From those facts, I conclude that level averaging adjustment is virtually impossible with a compressor. Of course, this is possible with logical settings, but the detail will collapse.
I'll be waiting to show the world I'm done. I'll be waiting to show the world I'm done. I'll be waiting to show the world I'm done. I'll be waiting to show the world I'm done. I'll be waiting to show the world I'm done. I'll be waiting to show the world I'm done.
Now we understand the 3-point elements of a compressor. A compressor changes the dynamics, transient, and decay of the signal. We can easily hear changes in dynamics, but transient and decay are momentary changes that are difficult to perceive. In other words, the compressor is a difficult effect because it is difficult to perceive the sounds of transient decay. In this video, I will take a deeper look at transient and decay. Of course, we should always think about expression. For example,
put your fucking hands up to your fucking bass face!
If you want to add aggressive detail to a material that doesn't have much dynamics,
put your fucking hands up to your fucking bass face! Put your fucking hands up to your fucking bass face! Put your fucking hands up to your fucking bass face!
depending on the detail of the song, it can be judged that there is no problem with extreme settings for such material. The detail of the attack have changed, but I think will match aggressive songs. I'm not happy with this, so I'll make some adjustment.
Put your fucking hands up to your fucking bass face!
You may not be sure what I did, but I'm trying to use expander to undo the initial overcompression. If the threshold is deep, only the first sound when the compressor starts to apply tends to be unnatural. It looks like a professional if you restore the attack detail with expander.
Put your fucking hands up to your fucking bass face! Put your fucking hands up to your fucking bass face! Put your fucking hands up to your fucking bass face!
Of course, if you want the impact of starting to sync, you probably don't need the expander process. But there are not many people who explain dynamics in expander, so I introduced. With proper setting, the compressor can adjust the dynamics without missing the detail of the original sound. Yes, it is. we are always looking for the best settings value. However, it is difficult for me to judge whether or not it matches. So here are systematic steps to determine if it is a match. It is often difficult for me to decide whether to use a compressor or not, so let's get decided to use it first, because there is still the option to bypass in the end. Then decide whether you want to suppress dynamics or adjust the groove. If you want to see extreme changes in envelope, use ducking or transient shaper. Isolate that to change the groove while suppressing the dynamics of the bass a little. Basic compressors cannot interfere with transient or decay to the extreme, so if you want adjust transient, use the transient shaper. If you want to actively interfere with decay, the upward compressor is effective. This focuses on groove and dynamic suppression. This is a procedure that uses compression while perceiving the original details. If you want aggressive sound making, move the parameter as you like. Ducking can influence the groove or groove more. Compressor bass to the kick signal. Ducking in smart comp is a bit special, but compression changes the raw sound. To be honest, you may be bored because you will only feel minor changes. The important thing is not to use a compressor, but what kind of sound you want to achieve. We want big differences, but the basic idea is to hear and judge those small differences. We understand that a compressor is an effect that can suppress dynamics and adjust the groove. Those are additional adjustments such as transient shaper and ducking. If you can handle the compression well, the EQ will be very easy. If you feel the transient and decay sound, you will want to EQ them separately. It is a little tricky, but let's try using the dynamic EQ. EQ cannot process transient and decay separately. With dynamic EQ, you can deal with each of them. The later EQ only need to be both. EQ is also much easier after controlling transient and decay. If you find EQ difficult, you probably just couldn't control the dynamics well, or you couldn't perceive the difference between the transient and decay sound. Of course, even EQ changes the envelope. Compressors are also useful for recovering the envelope that has changed due to the EQ, but I think it is difficult. The important thing about a compressor is to distinguish the speed of the sound. People say, but I cannot do it. Take it easy, relax. There are ways to determine the attack and release values. It is often difficult to judge by sound, so look at the waveform and play only the place you want to hear. What do you think? The attack and release times can be derived logically. Cannot you hear the difference at all? That's right. It's hard to hear because it gives only a few changes. Stacking small compression can make a big difference. It is very boring, but this section only describes the basic compressor usage. Compressors are a difficult effect for me as well. In the beginning, it is not often to know what to set with even attack and release value, so derive them from tempo and waveform. Or you can monitor the waveform, make good use of a Wavescope plugin. Compressors can adjust dynamics and groove. You can already hear the transient and decay sound. Adjust the parameter using the transient and decay sound as marker. It doesn't make much sense for signal with little or no dynamics. Here, I talked about how to use a compressor without destroying the details of the original sound as much as possible. As a shortcut to how to use a compressor, it is important to be able to capture the compressor musically. If you want to interfere with transient more aggressively, use transient shaper. Think of EQ and compressors as asset. That's why. I'm sorry, the video has become too long, so I will make an equalizer video as part 2. If you find this video helpful, please click like and share it. I'm also waiting for work requests. I can communicate in English by email, chat, DM. See you next video. Goodbye.